Hey there guys, welcome to this week's episode of James Wilson Presents. I'm James Wilson and today it gives me great pleasure to be reviewing this Doctor Who story, The Web of Fear. My god, it gives me a great sense of completion in having this story because I have this and The Enemy of the World, two of the missing stories that were recovered just last year. So sit back and enjoy as I review an episode featuring the dastardly and merciless The Great Intelligence and his horrible Yetis. Enjoy. Now, originally, I wanted to review Earthshock, which I had bought from my local HMV, along with buying The Web of Fear. But then I realised that Owen Salmons had reviewed Earthshock already back in Classic Week, and and I think having two of the same reviews is kind of repetitive, and there's probably already a bit of repetition on this channel already. Because if me and Matthew ever watched back every single one of our videos, we'll never have time to do that. But if me and Matthew ever watched back every single video that we'd ever done on this channel, then I can guarantee that me and Matthew will have repeated ourselves on quite a lot of occasions. So yes, today I'm going to be reviewing The Web of Fear. It's one of those stories that went missing and had been missing for a couple of decades, and there was a huge uproar with Whovians, as you can imagine. Obviously, the Enemy of the World and the Web of Fear had been found, and this was a point I think where me and Matthew had went classic series crazy. So like I said in the intro, there's a huge sense of completion in having this story because I've got two of the missing stories, which is it's quite a privilege to be able to say that. Anyway, let's get the facts over and done with. This story is the fifth serial of the fifth season of Doctor Who of Patrick Troughton's Second Doctor's era, and was broadcast from the 3rd of February to the 9th of March in 1968. It marks the return of the Yeti and the Great Intelligence, and also the character Professor Edward Travers, which makes The Web of Fear a sort of sequel to The Abominable Snowmen, well, it's kind of a prequel if you think about it. But anyway, I'm just going to confuse myself further. The main reason why I actually bought this story was because it was the first time Nicholas Courtney was ever going to play Lethbridge Stewart. He started out as a colonel and then worked up the ranks to brigadier of unit. And the reason why I say Nicholas Courtney started out as the reason why I specifically say Lethbridge Stewart is because Nicholas Courtney did feature as a completely different character in a First Doctor story. I'm not too sure what that was or what that character was. Anyone who does know, please put that in the comment section. Please feel free. And and there's only one episode of this story that actually remains missing, which is episode 3. And me and Matthew, when we were watching it and while I was reviewing it, episode 3 seemed to kind of take me out of the story quite a lot. I mean, they had enough time to animate it, and I mean, why couldn't they have done the same like they did with the 10th Planet? Animate the last episode. You know, they had enough time to do that, so I just don't understand why it was just stills of the episode. And there's another thing: if they have the episode stills from the exact episode, then shouldn't they have the episode itself? It just doesn't make sense to me. But still, for review's sake, I did have to sit back and watch episode 3, and I'll admit it was a bit of a drag, episode 4 onwards, because I just wanted it to get going now. But at the same time, it was still such an enthralling watch because the character of Edward Travers I thought was such a riveting character, and also his daughter. I think her name was Anne Travers. His daughter I thought was such a forceful presence, I think, and the actress did so very, very well, because obviously we were getting to a time now where sexism couldn't be tolerated right now, and women were actually starting to get more and more independent, and this was a woman who you didn't want to mess with, and that scene where she had a go at that at Charlie, the reporter who was trying to report the battle that was going on in the London Underground. And honestly, she was just such a the way she had a go at Charlie, and every other man that tried to get in her way was honestly brilliant. She's a fantastic character, and I hope that she is in future episodes. Obviously not now, because the actress is probably dead or just old. I don't know. But honestly, she is a fantastic character, and she's one of those rare, forceful presences that you just can't help but watch. And while watching the episode, the characters that I seemed to watch was definitely was the Doctor, Jamie, Victoria, and Mr. and Mrs. Travers, and I thought these were just some brilliant characters. And the great part about the story was that the Doctor was not present for episode 2 of of the story, and really I thought it was brilliant how the writers Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln, I thought it was brilliant how they had kept the story still watchable even with the Doctor not present, and even in the modern era, doing episodes without the Doctor can sometimes be a huge letdown, but they successfully did it with this, and there was a huge, and I can imagine the people of the time were probably worrying for the Doctor's life. The fact that he wasn't present for an episode, I thought was could have been a huge worry for them, because obviously in episode 2 a lot of people were wondering who the Doctor was, and it kind of showed the power of the Doctor as well, which I thought was brilliant, and how all the army and all the military men, they were all relying on Jamie, Victoria, and Edward Travers. They were all relying on their opinion of the Doctor for their views of the Doctor. They hadn't even met the Doctor yet, and yet they were putting hope in him, just because these three people had hope in the Doctor as the man that could save them all. And I thought that is the raw power of the Doctor. I think it was, I think it's just the guy's name, the Doctor. I think it's just one of those names where you just automatically trust them. Don't you just automatically trust a Doctor? Because not because of their qualifications, it's just the name the Doctor has an essence of trust in it, and I thought that the writers for episode 2 definitely did sort of tap into that, I think, which was brilliant. And like I said, episode 3 just seemed to me like it was a bit unwatchable at that time, because episode 3 was it just seemed like an absolute chore to watch it. I was, even when I first watched it, when I reviewed it, it was only the second time that I'd watched it, and I think that the first time I watched it, I just skipped past bits of episode 3, because it just seemed a little bit pointless to me. I was just like, oh, come on, just get to the chase, for goodness sake. But the huge, big, brilliant part for me for this story was the huge fight between the military and the Yetis, and the way Nicholas Courtney holds a gun. He holds it with such confidence and such cool. Honestly, why he wasn't James Bond, I honestly have no idea. Or why he wasn't, at the very least, in James Bond is honestly beyond me, because his confidence and his cool with a gun is brilliant. And yeah, he's just an actor. He probably wouldn't know what to do with a gun in real life, or how to fire it. But he did it with such confidence, and obviously the very moment he was on screen, he took control. Literally, Captain Matthews, I'm not too sure what his actual name was, but Captain Knight, I think it was. Captain Knight was in charge, but as soon as It was episode 3, and Nicholas Courtney just completely took control of the situation. He just said, "Captain Knight, I'm taking over, so you can stand down." Honestly, it's just to see Nicholas Courtney again. I've seen many, many, many episodes with Nicholas Courtney as Brigadier, and he is brilliant. But it was brilliant to see a story a little bit without the Doctor there, because a majority of the episodes where I've seen Brigadier in it, it seems to me that the Doctor seems to be the one who takes control, and it was great to see. Colonel Lethbridge Stewart take control of Captain Knight, and the character showed promise all the way through. It was just great to see him. This very first episode, it was great to see this character's roots and where he very first began. And I think that The Web of Fear is one of those stories where it focuses entirely on the authoritative sort of performance of some people. Because in case you haven't noticed, when you put the Doctor in a military setting where he's confronted with police, any sort of law enforcement sort of thing, or whether it be law enforcement or military, when you put the Doctor in that sort of setting and scenario, I think the Doctor definitely does shine, and he tells these people what for, and he tells them what to do, when he has no place to do that, and they're just sitting there wondering, who the hell is this guy? And then the Doctor just goes, "Stop gawking at me and go do your work, for goodness sake." And they do as he says immediately. And I think it's just one of again, it's just what I really like about these episodes. Although this episode does have its flaws, like it drags over the last 2 episodes, as I've said. But the main attraction to this episode, to the story, and what kept me watching, was simply due to the fact that the Doctor is so demanding in this, and it's quite ironic that that Colonel Lethbridge Stewart and Captain Knight and Staff Arnold and characters like this, who they should be the one giving the orders, and should be the one shooting people, and the one being very sort of confronting, but it's just so ironic seeing a little man with a little mop of hair and a little giggly laugh when a sphere comes walking towards him. And honestly, it's just so ironic to see the Doctor in such a authoritative setting when he himself is just so not confrontive whatsoever. It's actually quite ironic, and it's quite brilliant, really. And really, what I loved about it was that there was a sort of mystery as to who was working for the Great Intelligence. There was a huge mystery as to who was going to be the one who was, who was going to be the one who was really working for the Great Intelligence. And there were some characters who you sort of thought, maybe they might be the ones who's actually in on the plan of the Great Intelligence. And there was this one character in it who I did think was quite annoying, and I really wanted to punch if I got the chance. If he wasn't a fictitious character and on screen, I would have actually punched him. It was Evans, the annoying Welsh man in the story, and he kept going on about he's just the driver. I'm just the driver, see, And honestly, he tried to get out of any sort of problem that he got himself into, and it was actually good comedically at times. But he was just one of those characters where you just think, oh my god, I want to strangle him, because he was just trying to get out of any possible corner that he got himself in. Got himself caught by the Yetis. He tried to even sweet talk the Yetis. They were robotic and had no real sort of. They couldn't be persuaded. They couldn't be convinced of anything that Evans was saying. But it was still quite funny, Oh, you're lifting me up there. It's quite strong, see. And saying "see" at the end of every sentence, it got annoying at times. I'm not saying the Welsh accent is annoying, but my God, it's just Evans as a character. He just was annoying. Oh my God. But I'm actually getting worked up just talking about him. But honestly, I just think that characters like Evans and Chorley, they were characters that were incredibly annoying and incredibly cowardice, and and it's these sort of characters that sort of made the military characters shine even further, like Staff Arnold and Captain Knight and Lethbridge Stewart. I think it's these two cowardice characters that kind of make the Doctor, Jamie, Victoria, all these courageous characters sort of shine even further. And again, it's just Chorley and all these characters who are so cowardice. I think that they really do make for some comedic effect for the story. And although the Second Doctor, he himself, is a very comedic character, I just think that this story sort of hands itself less to the Doctor and more to the sort of power of the military. And the Doctor doesn't really like the military very much in their use of guns, and the Doctor does prefer to use his mind. I think in this story, military and the law enforcement definitely does have its uses, and he definitely does use the military to its full advantage here, and I think that is very sort of useful to the story. Now, sorry for making this review go a bit short, but as you can see, I'm coughing a hell of a lot. I seem to have a bit of a bad throat. It's not the first time I've had one of them. I don't know why it's starting to come up now. Damn the bad timing. But I don't think my throat can take actually a conclusion. But what I will conclude with this story is that the story wasn't exactly as enthralling as some other characters and some other story arcs that I've seen through Doctor Who, and it's not the best classic episode that I've seen. I'll admit that, but it definitely was sort of interesting to watch because it's so the story as the story unfolded. It definitely you got to see these characters progress, and it was one of those. It was definitely a very evolving story. That much I'll say. So. Yeah, I can't tell you what the big mystery was. I can't tell you who turned out to be the man who was revealed to work for the Great Intelligence. I can't really tell you that because because it's quite big to the storyline at the very end. But what I will say is that it's a very good story and it's definitely worth a watch. Although it does start dragging, it's definitely worth the drag because it gives you what you want in the end, which is closure on the story. You want the story to get wrapped up nicely, and it definitely did, and that's what the classic series was good at the very beginning. It was good at closing episodes. It was good at closing together a story arc, and that's something that the modern series struggles to do now. But that's probably because of the complex story arcs and stuff. So, in conclusion, I think that The Web of Fear is definitely worth a watch. And the Yetis, their new design, are just brilliant, and the characters are worth watching because, honestly, Professor Travers, both Professor Travers, there are two Professor Travers, which got confusing at certain points, but these characters are definitely worth watching, and the fight with Lethbridge Stewart and the military and the Yetis, my God, it's definitely worth a watch. Then let's answer a few comments from last week's solo video of mine, which was my season breaks and hiatuses. I made a big deal out of this video. For those of you who didn't see, who aren't on our Facebook, I'd actually released a Facebook video which was in the style of one of those charity videos that are in black and white, and it'd have one of those calm voices that would be like, "Thank you for listening." And I kind of did a sort of play on that, but in terms of how season breaks and hiatuses affect Whovians, so I thought that would have been funny, and I didn't get the reaction I thought I was going to. Guess that was kind of just a bit of a spur of the moment thing, that video. But the first comment is from Dr. Dan Alsop, who said, "See, I said your name right." Anyway, he says, "I think that there should have been Matt Smith on his own for a few stories in Series 6, instead of Let's Kill Hitler to God Complex. Then those can be him searching for Melody, and then we have Wedding of River Song in 2 parts. To occupy myself when there's no Doctor Who, I just make my Doctor Who figure adventures." That everyone reacts to the season break in their own little way. Me, for instance, I don't think I actually said this in the video. I think I only danced around this subject, but
What I kind of do is that lately I've been sort of like catching up on shows that I never watched, and that's sort of the beauty of a Doctor Who break, I guess. One of the very few positives of having a Doctor Who break is that it still hurts inside, but at least I can occupy my time with watching Breaking Bad, and most recently I've just gotten through season 1 of Dexter, so that is a very, very good show, actually. But yeah, so I actually very much agree that Series 6 would have went a hell of a lot smoothly if that actually happened. The 11th Doctor just spending a few episodes going looking for Melody, and I think that would be a great time to actually see some real personal chemistry between the Doctor and River, because we've only ever seen the Doctor and River together with his other companions around, and when the Doctor and River are alone, it's always, oh, River's such a mystery that I need to solve and stuff like that. But I do think that there could have been a lot more personal chemistry if they actually spent an entire episode together, which I thought could have brought a bit more layers to Series 6. And I don't think there could... And I wouldn't have really wanted the Wedding of River Song to go in parts, because more of the Wedding of River Song, not a good idea. Me and Matthew would have went absolutely fucking insane. So, more than 45 minutes of the Wedding of River Song... no. Just... no. My second comment is from Elijah Grealish. Hope I said that right. God, so many confusing names of our subscribers. And he says, you should watch 24 and Dexter. They're both good. However, 24 is just something you binge watch and isn't mind-blowing, but it's still really good. Thank you very much for that suggestion. I should get around to watching 24. See, I'd finished watching all of Breaking Bad, and as you can see right here, I've sort of established my love of that show quite well, but I'm now on to Dexter, which is, you're right, Dexter is an absolutely brilliant show. I've just got through season 1 of it, and Michael C. Hall, who plays Dexter, he has a very sort of emotionless feel to his performance, and it's brilliant. And although it does seem like a slight rip-off to American Psycho, I do think that show is pretty fantastic, and season 2 so far is being brilliant because the walls are closing in and on Dexter and his serial killer shenanigans, which is to be expected considering he's a blood analyst and he works for the police, so it's about time something bit him on the arse like that. But I'm looking forward to watching the rest of Dexter, and hopefully after that I will get round to watching 24. My third comment is from Muttering Mushroom. And he or she says, when you watch Asylum of the Daleks, did you notice they darkened the shades of blue and red Paradigm Daleks? I did notice that. They darkened the shades, which again, I will say, the colour scheme has definitely very much improved on the Paradigm Daleks. And honestly, people say, I hated Victory of the Daleks, that much I'll say, but I loved the design of the Paradigm Daleks. It's just simply the colour scheme let them down so badly. And for those people who are slamming on us for taking the piss out of the Paradigm Daleks, it's not the design, it's simply the colour scheme. It is awful, and really it brings such a rough and gruff voice that the Daleks have now. It brings that down to such a childish level. And really, a plush toy of Daleks, I go in HMV and I see a plush yellow toy of a Dalek that is for cuddling. No! You don't want to cuddle a Dalek. You want to, maybe, I don't know, make a Dalek roam around the room and scare people, but you don't ever want to cuddle a Dalek. I don't know, it's like telling a Slovene to take a breath mint. It's just not right. My fourth and final comment is from Owen Salmons, a good mate of mine, who says, I do think that the 7th Doctor episodes were very bad, and I am not surprised it got cancelled. The breaks are dreadful, so horrible. Too long for breaks. I would say we should have 3 to 5 months off air, and then they should air the episodes, and then another 3 to 5 months gap, and so on. I suppose that could work, but maybe I think there would be a lack of fluidity with the series otherwise. and I don't think I'll admit a series can't really flow properly unless we have the breaks, and that's a small price to pay, I suppose. But I've got something to admit. This solo video was kind of just like a little, you know, sort of piss take of a video, a little bit. Yeah, I was touching upon a subject that is very, very current because we're in a Doctor Who break at the moment. But at the same time, I do understand the importance of Doctor Who breaks, but again, like I said in the video, that doesn't stop it from hurting inside. So then guys, that's it for this week's episode of James Wilson Presents. Don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already for some great videos over the next couple of days. Also, don't forget to comment in the section below how you would rate the Web of Fear and why. Also, please go to this link on the screen below. There you can visit our website where it will take you to links to all of our social networking sites where you can keep up to date on anything and everything that happens on Who Addicts Reviews. So then guys, I will see you next time.